Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the APAC Manufacturing Conclave. Before I start this panel discussion, just to set the context, we are having this APAC Manufacturing Conclave organized by our organization, APAC News Network, over the last couple of days. And the format, how we discussed was, we have been typically taking on each of the domains within manufacturing industry and looking at how digital technologies and digital transformation is impacting different facets of that sector. So we had panel discussions with pharmaceutical here, automobile, FMCG, energy and utilities, oil and gas, steel, logistics, and different other sectors over these 2 days. And before I introduce each of the panelists here, it would not be out of place to mention the industry partners who have supported us for this program. We have been supported by Guidance Tamil Nadu, Fortinet, Avaya, Click, Siemens, Morphisec, Crestron, as well as Choice Solutions. So it's now my pleasure now to introduce each of the panelists in this digitization of the pharma industry new normal. So we have with us today Ganesh Ramachandran, Global CIO of Alchem Laboratories. Welcome, Ganesh.
Thank you so much, Rajneesh. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Next, we have Sanjay Nandavadekar. He's a Director IT of Cipla. Welcome, Sanjay.
Good afternoon, folks. Thank you so much.
Welcome. We have Sandeep Pandey, Chief Digital Officer of Mankind Pharma. Welcome, Sandeep.
Thank you, Rajneesh, and looking forward to have a wonderful discussion here. Thank you.
We have Narendra Saini, Head Digital and Data of Lupin. Welcome, Narendra.
Thank you, Rajneesh. Good to be here.
Thank you. We have with us Braj Panda, VP and Head Digital Center of Excellence, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. Welcome, Braj.
Thank you, Rajneesh. Happy to be here.
We have with us Nikhil Shembekar, Head Digital Analytics, Supply Chain and Emerging Technologies, Sun Pharma. Welcome, Nikhil.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
We have with us Shomoduti Ghosh, AVP Digital Marketing Leader at Strides Pharma. Welcome, Shomoduti.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting and looking ahead for a wonderful and interesting discussion ahead.
Sure. And we have with us Mr. Krishna Sahi, AVP IT of Biocon. Welcome, Krishna.
Thank you, Rajneesh. Good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon. We have with us from outside India, Alan Sanchez. He is the EMEA CISO and Senior Evangelist at Fortinet. Welcome, Alan.
A great honor to be with you, gentlemen, on this panel.
And we will be, in a couple of minutes, joined also by Manu Gupta of Cadila Pharma. So, the format which we would like to follow is maybe to each of you, I would initially ask one question. In fact, just let me, Manu has just joined in. Yeah, welcome, Manu.
Thank you. Sorry for being a little late.
It's okay. So Manu Gupta, VP IT of Cadila Pharma, is also on the panel. So as I was mentioning, what I would like is, I would like to start with one question to each of the panelists. And after taking your views on each of those areas, then I will keep certain generic points of discussion open to all the panelists. Please feel free to add your viewpoints there. So what I would like to start first with Ganesh. And my first question I would like to put is, in this pandemic and post-pandemic period, pharmaceutical industries have been perhaps the industry which have been most busy or most So in that scenario, how have digital technologies sort of optimized or enhanced the productivity of pharma companies to manage this challenging situation in this post-pandemic period?
Thanks for the question, Rajneesh. So absolutely, I think what we have been seeing is a huge acceleration of digitalization and digital transformation in the pharma industry. And it's been necessitated by a few key business drivers that kind of came in. The variability that you were seeing, which was coming across on business requirements, has, I believe, blurred the boundaries between what was business and what was technology. You needed the business teams to understand technology, and vice versa. You need technology teams to really look at saying, what are the business challenges and what solutions needed to kind of come in. Is this something that was completely new? No. This has been there earlier too, but it's got accelerated because now digital was not seen as something that was on a limb, but is completely integrated with the business requirements a lot more. I think that is what fundamentally changed. Along with it, there were two other things that changed to my mind. One was the entire need for agility and flexibility. So as there were requirements that were evolving, you needed to be a lot more flexible with the way you saw it. Examples being the variability that you saw in demand led to pressure right across the value chain, going all the way through your distribution supply chain and to your manufacturing. How could you make sure that the entire network was a lot more flexible for meeting these varied demands that you were seeing coming across, because either people were upstocking on medicines or you were seeing that some of the therapy areas were seeing beating, depending on whether it was a lockdown or otherwise. The third area, which to my mind, I think changed dramatically, was the whole focus on looking at experience. Given that you were doing a lot more on technology enablement, and in the pharma industry, you do have a lot of people who have used to, more legacy kind of ways of working. How do you ensure that the experience is so intuitive for them to be able to take on, is I believe the third area that really changed. I think technology in pharma was there all across, especially when you looked at things like R&D, at quality. Some of these areas had probably a little more technology. But I think a lot of changes have also come in the front office, which we've been seeing a lot happen during the pandemic. And a lot of that has started leading to saying that we need to be seeing how could we accelerate things happening on the R&D side? How could we improve efficiencies on the manufacturing side? And to my mind, basis that what you are probably looking at, and I'm sure my co-panelists will be talking a lot more about it, and I'll be happy to jump into it too at a later point, is things like big data, AI, ML. What are the kind of things that you can look for in terms of applications of those, and how could you leverage that for getting better business benefit for the organization, is I think what we've been seeing a lot more during the pandemic, Rajneesh.
Sure. Thanks, Ganesh, and we would come to more specific points subsequently. I'll come to you next, Sanjay, and it's a little bit extension of what I asked Ganesh, and I would want to be more specific in terms of what are the new generation technologies which pharma industry is saying, specifically with respect to things like drug discovery or formulation or clinical trials. We know for the vaccine process, how the things got accelerated. Normally, a vaccine which will take maybe multiple years had to be done in a few months, literally. So what are the new gen technologies that helped in these processes?
Yeah, thanks, Rajneesh. I think first and foremost, I must say that pharmaceutical industry itself got a booster dose because of the pandemic, right? The technology which we used to use before the pandemic has completely changed in terms of landscape and the alignment as well. As you rightly mentioned, and Ganesh also touched upon that, the technology acceptance, what was there in pre-pandemic era, has dramatically changed post-pandemic area. There is no boundary as of now between the business and the technology. Now it's a fine merger of technology and business altogether, and that has prominently given the result in the areas where you are talking about, like reducing the cycle time for drug discovery. The technology hesitance which was there in pre-pandemic situation is no more there, because everybody is having the pressure of getting into a competition. bringing a new drug in a record time and managing the lesser cycle time for drug production. So right from the conventional technologies of using your core applications to looking at a newer technology like AI, ML, and modeling and simulation has emerged during the pandemic situation. We have certain use cases where we are already working on certain new technologies like AI, ML, and we are using a lot of data which is getting processed into modeling and simulation to accelerate our drug discovery, which is already a use case which was not thought before the pandemic, but during the pandemic we are working on such technologies, and we do understand the potential of these technologies because now while working with this technology, also we are having a lot of good discussions with the regulators. We are having a lot of good alignment points with the regulators, where regulators are also supporting us to evolve and understand and work with these kind of technologies to minimize the cycle time in drug discovery. At the same time, we have seen a lot of traction between the regulators and the pharmaceutical industry to think about a new way of the evaluations, basically the dossiers evaluations. Can we go for a new path for drug discovery? And I think in silico is one of the discussion which is already on in pharmaceutical industry. So regulators also understand this. This is a time where we need to think little ahead of the traditional way of drug discovery, where we are having a wait time of more than 2 years or more than that. Particularly, I'm talking about the generic industries because all of us are from the generic industries. Particularly from a clinical trial, I think this has been dramatically changed now because pre-pandemic situation where everybody was at the site. Now you have no way that you can reach out to each and every site and collect the data. And that is the area where you have largest penetration of the digitalization. Now you have ability to connect with the devices with the last subject and collect the data right at the same time where the dosing has happened or where you have treatment which has been given to the subject. At that point in time, I think we are in a position to get the data right from devices which are connected on the internet, which will pass on the data from the site to the CRO sites. So that kind of changes we are observing in clinical space. At the same time, I think we are working with a lot of historical data which is coming from the organization data set. At the same time, we are evaluating a lot of publicly available data. We are trying to get the inferences of various opportunities in drug discovery using the clinical trial data. So all in all, I think I'll cut it a little short, but all in all, if you look at the pharmaceutical industry, every aspect of the pharmaceutical industry, every department of the pharmaceutical industry has been touched by the digitalization. And that is where I was mentioning this is a booster dose for a digital adoption in the pharmaceutical industry. Had it not been a pandemic situation, probably we would have taken a little more time for adoption of digital in pharmaceutical sector. That is what I think, Janish, on the situation where you're talking about how the adoption of newer technologies have happened in pharmaceutical industry.
Sure. Thanks, Sanjay. So just one announcement I'd like to make before I come to the next question. We had already, when our team connected with each of you, that we are felicitating you, would like to felicitate you with a small token of appreciation. So instead of having an award later, I would request after this panel discussion ends to wait for a couple of minutes. We will digitally hand over a certificate to each of you, and those certificates will be mailed to you separately. And our team will subsequently get in touch with you for your addresses where we want to send a small token of appreciation to each of you. Thanks. Anyway, next I'll come to you, Sandeep. My question regarding you, how does digital technology help in better coordination between the pharma companies and the caregivers in the healthcare facilities using COPE and other techniques? So how is that relation going?
Okay. So interesting question. And if you see, my apologies, guys, I have a bit of a bad throat here. So if you see in the last the year or so, this is one area where there has been a lot of activity. Yeah. and rightfully so, because this is among the very few areas where there's a significant overlap between pharma as well as healthcare, right? So both players are seeing significant benefit in going down this path. And anyways, COVID necessitated a lot of these things, right? So some of the digital technologies that have really kind of helped in this entire process is, if you see the entire mobility based thinking, yeah, with your handheld devices being the primary mode of interaction, yeah, or the portal to the world, so to speak, right? Now that thinking has kind of gathered a lot of steam, and that has now become the primary approach with which you try to solve these problems. Yeah, so that one thinking itself is a big one. The second thing that has happened is a lot of integration with other providers. Yeah, and these providers need not be just technology providers like the Twilios of the world who are helping you and build a platform on which you can do teleconsultations, right? But also a lot of service providers, yeah. So caregivers, very unique value proposition providers like Xyla Health, so yeah, who are kind of giving you very specialized care, but at the same time, you can bring that into to give much more to your patients and doctors. Yeah, so these are some of the things that are really coming up. The third thing that I've seen, which is picking up a lot, yeah, is how do you collect and how do you process the vitals and the information related to that? How can you bring in advanced level of analytics and technologies to predict some of the futuristic or let's say the condition of the patient through this? Yeah, so this is also something that we are trying to kind of achieve, and I believe many others are also doing this. Yeah, but one thing which we have to be mindful of, and this is what I hope we will move towards today. If you see, we are all fighting for the real estate on the phone of our stakeholders, right? So everybody wants to be on the home screen, yeah, and that's where you're not just competing with the other players in this industry or in this space, but you're also competing with literally everybody. Yeah, I mean, the WhatsApp, the Amazon, and God knows what not. Yeah, the interesting thing, if you see, if you go to if you largely do a survey in the urban population, at least 40 to 50% of people have one folder on their home screen called health and fitness. Yeah, but if you double click on that and go inside that folder, it's largely having apps that are, collecting vitals, mental fitness, some amount of information, or if somebody is a chronic patient, then some related website or some related app to that. Yeah. Now, the point that I'm trying to make is what has happened is there has been a lot of effort in this space. Yeah. But what has not happened and what is the need of the hour now is a bit of a consolidation. And to me, post-pandemic, this is one area where I think we'll have to start working towards. Otherwise, we are never going to make it to the home screen of let's say, our end customers. Yeah, if we collaborate across the industry, across the players, and find that find the value proper, find the offering that best helps across the customer base, that's when we're going to make it, and that's what we have to attempt for. Yeah, so a lot of things happening, but some amount of consolidation is what is the need of the hour going forward, is what I would say.
Thank you, Sandeep. Next, I'll come to you, Narendra. And you are looking after digital and data, so maybe the pertinent question to you would be, how is pharmacy informatics being used there, especially for optimizing information, usage of drug information for better decision making, problem solving, and which in turn will help safer pharmaceutical care. So how is informatics being used?
Thanks, Rajneesh. So I think before I answer that question, I'll probably answer something which is where the impact is, right? We've been compliance and regulation, regulated industry, largely compliance heavy, and that's also the reason why until 2019 the digital adoption in pharma industry has been very, very limited. Not that the IT departments were not ready or not really keen. We always had hit the wall with the compliances and regulation, regulatory body. That also means that probably the lot of value that was still there was not really unblocked. Now that digital adoption is fast post-pandemic, the big change has come in, be it regulators or be it the companies and the investment that we are making in the IT in general or digital transformation. The amount of value unlocking that we'll have as a pharma industry might actually be more than what probably other industries would experience, largely because a bottleneck was there, and then these 3 to 5 years we probably be the one of the fastest growing industry with respect to digital transformation. That you can also see, and that's where a lot of value unlocking is there. Now coming to your questions, how we are actually using these data and digital part over there. So I think Sanjay talked about how we are looking at the data coming directly from the devices to the central HO or maybe to the platforms where we can do the data crunching and data analytics. So I believe technology has not been a limitation anytime in the past as well. So is the case even now. The limitation has been the adoption and the process understanding, which was limited earlier. A lot of pharma companies have concerns about confidentiality of the recipes of different work that they've been doing. I think that's opening up. Earlier, even the IT departments would not know, but today we are becoming a partner of our manufacturing and R&D teams, where we are not just seen as enabler. We are seen as a partner of growth, right? And this is where we are getting into the details of the processes, looking at various aspects of optimization that can be done across the value chain and not just limited to the output, right? Even if let me take a very simple example of field optimization. If it is a multi-stage product, every stage will have some something to offer as an optimization, or maybe could be additional lead that we can look at. That's something that we are doing now. That's where we are getting into. So I think we are getting deeper into the entire processes and looking at how we can process information, how we can onboard, and how we can look at the overall optimization. So that's only part of like one example of manufacturing, but this is the case across the board, be it sales and marketing, or about R&D for that matter, right? Or internal supply chain. Across the supply chain, maybe the optimization across the value chain. So these are the things we are doing. I think that's the case with everyone else as well, I believe. And yeah, we're looking at overall the value unlocking. The last 3 years particularly has been largely investment, because it was more of something that we are looking forward that we need to do. We need to adopt digital. But I think what will happen in 2023 onwards is to build a business case around it. We need to harvest the benefits of what we have done, the investment so far, right? So I think the investment will become more and more directional, more business case centric. That's what we are looking at, even from the data or digital or whatever we were talking about, the investment in this direction will take that route.
Thanks, Sanendra. Next, I'll come to you, Manu. In the meantime, we have been joined also by Pavitra Nayala. He is Vice President IT at Newland Laboratories. Welcome, Pavitra. So my next question to Manu, and I'd like to focus on how are the pharmaceutical companies handling complex workflows. The workflows are fairly complicated and complex. So how are they handling it, and what are the challenges there?
So, frankly speaking, pharma being a more compliance and audited organizations, they were very reluctant to change the processes. But due to this pandemic, I would say we have taken a fresh look on how these workflows, these processes can be scrutinized again, can be shortened, can be seen how the digital can come into the place, and can we make digital approvals, can we make the kappa exceptions that can be punched in directly in the systems, the recordings of the manufacturing can be come directly into the system. So those are the areas where I see where the major changes are being thought as of now. More connected machines, more connected quality applications, more connected manufacturing cycles, not only related to the regular manufacturing, but also any deviations that is happening needs to be connected digitally, approved digitally, so that the complete approval process, which used to get into the multiple pages and multiple signing authorities, can be complete digitized and move into a direction of a quick, small, fixed approval process that can be easily validated, easily audited. Understand the fact that currently the pace, as everyone out here has said, that the pace of drug discovery and drug manufacturing has increased a lot. So quality is again an area where the focus has changed a lot. We need to make sure that the batch we are producing is being tested during the production only. We need to make sure that the parameters that are not manually controlled, but system controlled. Any deviations is highlighted at the time of manufacturing only. So these are the aspects that are making, first, the process altogether more stringent, more streamlined, and more digitally controlled. And secondly, all the workflows, all the deviations are again captured digitally and approved digitally.
Thank you, Manu. Next, I'll come to you, Braj. Again, I would like your views on how this digitization is helping in better problem solving and decision making, especially when, as most panelists are mentioning, time is of critical essence in the current scenario. So how is digitization and informatics, if I may say, helping in faster decision making for the pharma companies? Braj.
Sure, Rajneesh. I think a lot has already been spoken, right? So I was just going through a survey recently, where I think they asked about 500 odd executives in the pharma industry. And I think there was like about half of them actually said that due to COVID, the whole digital transformation, which would take, let's say, years, now it's shortened into sort of a month. Right, and it's basically accelerated the industry's adoption towards digital by, let's say, 5 years, right? And I think Sanjay articulated it very well when he said that the industry got a booster dose. Is a perfect way to sort of summarize it. Now, to your question, how decision making is happening, I think many different ways. There is much sort of concerted effort now, right, and conscious adoption of advanced analytics, big data, etc., to sort of do the decision making. I think, in my experience, some of the things that are happening now is basically using various technologies, starting from be it IoT, edge devices, sensors to capture data from our plants, machines, a lot of lab devices and at the healthcare providers. A lot of user analytics, user behavior data being collected from our D2C, direct to customer channels. So across all the touch points that you would think, right, be it B2B, B2C, B2B2C, across all spheres, there is now a sort of a concerted effort to capture data and make use of it. Okay, and what that is sort of resulting in is all organizations are now sort of becoming decision makers based on data. So organizations become sort of data driven. Decision making has now come sort of naturally to them, right? If I go deeper into each of the sort of three aspects I mentioned, right? So if you let's say the touch points with patients, right? Right now, pharma and healthcare were seen very differently. Okay. Now, what is happening is even in India, where traditionally pharma has been sort of not great adopters, like big pharma in US, right? We have not been great adopters of tech, but now there is a proactive interest from both pharma as well as healthcare side to come together to look at the patient touch points, the lab touch points, and also the via the pharmacy value chain, the sort of patient touch points in the market today, right? All the three touch points we're basically now trying to sort of access either via device integration, via mobile channels, better digital apps, and so on, right? So that is a big focus now. The second thing that is happening is, if I go beyond people, is basically our internal systems, right? If you see, let's say 2 to 3 years ago, you wouldn't expect an MES, right? Like a manufacturing execution system or a LIMS or any kind of drug data systems that we buy from external. You wouldn't expect those systems to interface with anything, okay? And anything that you would want from them will have to come through a flat file, okay? Some sort of an export, right? Very, very non-real time and all that. Now, the OEMs themselves are actually reaching out and basically working in a co-creative model with us to basically expose these systems via REST APIs and all. This is a big change. Remember that we're not a bank, we're not banks, we are not telecom operators, right? So we've not done this before. So these are huge mindset shifts, okay? To be willing to expose systems via APIs, right? So I'm bringing all the siloed platforms and businesses together. Data now flows between platforms and systems in near real-time manner. Okay, so that's about system integration. So people integration, system integration. Third is our machines and plants. Smart manufacturing is no longer a futuristic science. To everybody that are present here in the audience, and you go to the industry, even in India, you would see very nice sort of adoption and sort of acceptance to smart manufacturing as a concept, right? Now we want our machines to be intelligent, right? And technology has also progressed, right? So to enable that. So I think across all these three touch points, the data that are coming in with the augmentation of big data and advanced analytics on top of that is helping us understand the people, process and technology much better in near real time. We make decisions much faster. We take preventive actions before things go wrong. And also it is helping us create new business models. Now pharma companies are going into telehealth, into OPD insurance and whatnot, right? And we are also going to medicine supply chain. We are becoming like PharmEasy or 1mg, etc. So you wouldn't expect Indian pharma to do that in the past, right? And that is all being enabled simply because of the data-driven decision-making ability that we have now.
Perfect. So basically, you have touched upon two interesting aspects. One, the first was the alignment between the pharma and healthcare industry, especially in the current scenario. And the second is how better decision-making has led to evolution of newer business models for pharma companies. Nikhil, I'll come to you next. And my question is more pertinent to the supply chain. One, the last couple of years, we have seen even globally and otherwise, a lot of disruptions in the supply chain. Notwithstanding those disruptions, how are the pharma companies and the supply chain has been very critical in this scenario for pharma companies. So how have pharma companies managed and how have these digital technologies helped in this endeavor? Nikhil.
So I think it's an interesting question. So I think first of all, I think even when the lockdown happened in 2020, the first lockdown, barring a few days, I think none of our plants actually shut down. So, and I'm sure that's the case with all other pharma companies as well. I think being an essential commodity, I don't think we had the luxury of shutting down any of the plants. And In fact, it was, as most of the people would know, it was like a national duty to kind of supply vaccines or supply medicines, and that time probably hydrochloroquine was a very big thing, and we also supplied to the US, and a lot of humanitarian gestures also were done at that point of time. So there was no question of what should I say, shutdown of the factories. But yes, I think there were, like you said, in the supply chain might have multiple players involved. So definitely there was a disruption to some degree. Okay, but I think within a month or so, I think I remember March was the lockdown, but I think by April mid or by April end, I think things were back and running on the supply chain part, right? So and I think as everyone has alluded to, I think an increasing use of technology has enabled players to be more agile, more nimble, right? So I remember, I think in the last 1 year or so, people have implemented technologies which can determine whether the shipment needs to go by a ship or by an air or by train or whatever. So you can kind of predict, okay, which is the right way to ship out your materials, which one gives you more cost effectiveness. So those are some of the areas where people have started investing into. The second part was on the supply chain part was more and more people are now, including our company, we are now a lot more cost focused as well. So can we look at the inventory levels? Can we look at reducing inventories across our plants? How can we get the as they say, bang for the buck? So that is another area where there's a lot of investment happening on the technology side. Can we nudge the people to do better on the supply chain side? So I think there is a lot of interesting use cases on the supply chain. And just a couple of days back, we were also looking at some of the really big players who were not part of the pharma sector also enter into this area. I'm referring to Google and other players who are now aggressively entering into this market because they have access to a lot of data now. So can we use this data to make better decisions? Where will I fail to supply? Can I reduce the OTIF? So a lot of interesting use cases are now being explored, and I think next couple of years will be pretty exciting for the supply chain industry in terms of optimizing it, getting better cost, better value overall on the supply chain side.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Shomoduti, I'll come to you in terms of the question again. In terms of your experience about the new generation technologies being used in or APIs being used in formulation and other processes. So what sort of these new gen emerging technologies do you see that are coming out?
Yeah, I'm audible. Yeah, okay. So, though, digitalization, which we are talking about in pharma industry, digitalization has started much before, means from the early last decade, like MES, serialization. These were the first step for digitalization. If we come to the revolution part, where we have the I 4.0, or maybe more specifically Pharma 4.0. From there, the industry started digitalization, and pharma industry has started much more on digitalization. So apart from EBMR or even serialization, coding, many more things has come in pharma industries. One of most recent development is the smart glasses, which basically helps, not only the smart glasses helps for having view from the remote. It also has those intelligence now that in the smart glasses, you can put the SOP itself, and a person who is actually maybe in the laboratory is testing the samples can go through the entire procedure with the SOP right on his lens, and he can no scope of getting error. Even the smart glasses having the camera, what step he is doing, what he is executing, everything is getting recorded, and he is also the smart glass is also actually guiding if anything, any wrong operation is done by the user. This is one thing. Second thing, smart glasses are also used for examining the equipments or troubleshooting the equipments or whatever maybe the machines from remotely. So, you know, this has helped a lot in the production of the manufacturing aspect from in the pandemic. Okay. So previously, if there was an equipment issue, the vendor or the OEM has to come down and fix it up. Now the smart glasses is helping for remotely doing that one. That is one. Third thing which has helped a big change in pandemic is the smart glasses has helped for audit as well, for remote audit by the regulatory authority. And these all things is coming right now, and because of the pandemic, it has escalated. Second thing I would say is the digital twins. It still many research are going on digital twins sort of thing, where, you know, two particular samples are the original, maybe it's a process, or the plant process has been converted into a simulation. Exactly a twin has been made digitally of the process, and many simulation where optimization, speed, and the quality, all these threes come into the picture, where in the digital twins, they process it with artificial intelligence, they process it, and what parameters, if changes, and what improvements can be done, can be analyzed with that digital twins and can be implemented in the actual process, which will actually increase or whatever maybe the quality objective, maybe the quality or the speed, or maybe the improvements in terms of optimization. So these are the one of the key benefit of this digital twins. Apart from that, we are using artificial intelligence in like continuous process verification, CPV. So previously CPV used to be manual. Right now it has become digitalized. Previously CPV was like, it was taking months, means more than a month. Okay. With digitalization of CPV, we can do that one in a couple of days. So these are the key benefits and the new technologies which has come into the. Lastly, I would say one more thing is, which still we are doing, is the predictive analysis, or we can talk about predictive maintenance as well. Okay. So predictive maintenance, of course, to reduce the downtime, to increase the productivity. Predictive maintenance is a hot topic which has been adopted by any industry, not only pharma. And predictive analysis. This is a very, very good chapter, which I could say for the improvement of the drugs or the formulation of the drugs. Analysis of the process of the reports in the quality check, what has come. This can, with the predictive analysis, we can improve a lot on the product front. So these are the few mentionable new era of technology. Okay. And there are many more we can bring in.
Sure, thanks. Krishna, I'll come to you next. Again, talking about problem solving and faster decision making, what has been your experience, especially in optimally using the drug information? Krishna.
Yeah, so thanks, Rajneesh. I think most of the points were, covered by the team who has been already telling. So on the decision making, coming back to the original, topic, the post-pandemic, the changes, what has happened on to the pharma. So there has been, we saw there has been drastic change. All of us have already told. So this, if you term this as, what was there in the legacy to now, there is a leapfrog digital innovation which is happening, which can bring in, definitely a transformative benefits along with some risks here and there, obviously, right? So on the decision making, while obviously the mobile enablement which has been there, and the things which were looked at earlier, like I think someone was also talking about that, which was never looked at to going out of the core manufacturing area, which is like, integrated part of it. Now it has been looked at, why can't it be done using, mobile or your electronic signatures, 21 with 21 part 11 compliance as well. So these are the changes what we have been observing, at least in the industry and in the company as well. And now we also see there's a lot of pull from the departments, whether it is manufacturing, quality, supply chain, name it. So to the extent of people approaching IT and then say, do you have anything which I can put it as a digital initiative for me for the next year? Let's say in the budgeting process, if I have to allocate some, funds around it and all that. So we are also looking at the kind of wearable glasses, which I think Ghosh also has talked about. So those are all anyway was happening. These at the manufacturing shop floor level, the kind of digitization has got its own challenges, while we have been talking about, yes, we have to do, but given the kind and the nature of operations, the technologies which are available versus the cost, I think that's where the challenge is there, because of the nature of operations, what they carry, of the flammable materials or the electronic devices, can they go into the shop floor? How will you capture the data from the root of the equipment itself? Because all these were like, isolated, non-network kind of zones in the core manufacturing or quality labs if you go. So getting the data from them and doing any analysis, whether it is predictive, AI driven. So those are the areas where the new focus is moving towards. That's what I can add, Rajnish.
Thanks. Next is Pavitran. My question again to you, very specific in terms of handling complex workflows under LIMS or thing. How has been your experience in managing the complexity of the workflows for the pharma companies?
Yeah, thanks for having me here, everyone. Maybe before I go to that area, I'll just touch base upon the digitization and the strategies what we are taking. Though pharma is slightly behind in the digitization journey. Now pandemic has accelerated, but we are not focused on digitization keeping the technology in mind. It's more outcome based, KPI driven. So whenever we look at what Krishna Sai said is a right thing, the shop floor level, right? It's easy to digitize at the top floor, but when you go to the shop floor, how do you digitize? How do you get the data? How do you prove the value is a challenging aspect. You don't, if you don't prove the value, or if you don't prove the concept, you will not get the funding. So there will be many opportunities, to build workflows, to improve the flow of communication between quality, manufacturing, or PPIC, whatever departments. But how do you get the data? How do you take the right data and give the that right data to the right people is very critical. So that is where we see today in the quality or in the production or in different departments, data is in silos. They have their own systems. It could be LIMS, it could be ELN, or it could be some other MES, or a manual way of doing things, logging things. So the data is in different states and different systems and different forms. So bringing this data and building a one source is a critical to develop workflows to drive the decision making process. I think it all starts, how do we develop the data strategy? And when we have the right data, then we can have a workflow. Even if we wanted to, track from demand planning to dispatch plan, different workflows, we need to have the right data, and and the access is given to the right people with the right control, so that these kind of workflows will expedite the way we are doing things. For example, today, if I have to get a quotation approval to respond to an RFP, probably might take 10 days. By having a right workflow between QC and the sales and other members, I'll be able to achieve that in 5 days. Thus, I can improve the customer experience, right? So, there are many ways, the LIMS part, integrating that with the ERP. How do we have the right, material codes in LIMS? How do we integrate that? If I have different SKUs in SAP in different codes in LIMS, different codes, used by marketing, how do we integrate this? So workflows is an end result, but really focusing on the data is very critical, since many companies, especially who are very regulated sectors, they're all grown in silos. So definitely we are developing workflows, whether it could be custom development or looking at low code platforms to make the decision making process with the right data much faster. Rajneesh. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I know, Alan, you have been listening patiently to all the pharma guys, and you have heard all of them talking about we are living in slightly, if I may use it, challenging times, and where pharma has really been, if I may say, proved to be a savior for the mankind. So, and you have heard about the challenges and how digitization has helped. So my question to you, hearing the entire challenges and the dynamics of the pharma industry as a solution provider, and we heard some of the panelists that even pharma companies have looked at working with third parties. So, so how have you as a solution provider, working with the pharma companies, and how can you help in this current scenario?
Thank you. First of all, I was listening with passion, guys. Thank you for that. In about an hour, I've learned so much from you. I'm going to tell you two examples of the way the security technologies are helping the complex world that you are describing. And then I will give you, in my opinion, 3 attributes that you should always have in mind when you pick up, select, and put in production any security system that you want. The first one is, you described very well the fact that the ecosystem itself is becoming very complex. Braj, for instance, explained that there were systems that used to be disconnected that all of a sudden or gradually are going to be connected to the rest of the information system in general. When you look at that from a pure cybersecurity officer perspective, you don't like that, right? You don't like that because it creates what we call an increase of the attack surface. You have so many opportunities then, not only for each of the process independently seen together, but when you connect them, it's an exponential curve of attack surface that grows. So how do you do to have an intelligence that not only monitors every of the single processes and systems and devices, but also gives you a visibility overall? We use for that a branch of artificial intelligence that is called machine learning. And machine learning would first of all see what a normal operational condition looks like for these systems. What is the flow of data, how fast, how long the packet, where do they go? And it will learn also the behavioral of the systems. What does it normally do in maintenance phase, in production phase, etc. And it would capture a series of operational conditions whose combination leads to a baseline behavioral. And when you detect a gap between what normal was and the actual, you do something with this gap. You raise an alarm, you send an SMS, you kill the traffic, you isolate the systems. There's many things you can do once you have detected that. Now, the sum of parameters of all these systems working together is so big that it's not enough just to proceed to a series of tests. If I have that, and I have that, or I have that, then I do that, except if this happens, okay? This would not be enough. This is actually a Boolean logic that was invented in 1815, right, by a gentleman, a British gentleman called Boole. It can't be said it's absolutely brand new. Actually, it's got a few centuries. What we do the moment when it deserves the I in intelligence here is all those elementary conditions are weighted. We give it a differentiated importance, and it's compared to the actual results that we got in the end, whether these combinations of elementary conditions has proven to be harmful. And it recalculates the weight dynamically so that the ability to detect whether this is normal, this is harmful, this is an attack, or this is just normal operation is actually the case. And this loop of recalculating the weight, and we're talking millions of reweighting parameters, is the moment where the 19th century technology does a giant leap to the 21st, because we have now enough computing power to turn this condition and all the elementary weights into a decision-making process and compare how accurate this decision-making process is to reality. This is how artificial intelligence is applied to cybersecurity in securing all the systems that you guys are putting in place for production, for exposing the data, for exchanging the data. And the second thing is the right to say no first. It carries by an acronym in cybersecurity that is called Zero Trust Network Access, or Zero Trust Access. It's a luxury that we can only afford now because of the power of our CPUs and computer. In the past, it was just good enough to recognize a credential, password, ID, password, plus sometimes double authentication, and grant you access. Now, you can steal the keys of a car. Someone can take your credential and get into those very fragile and important systems. But the way the car is driven now, the speed, the itinerary, the way you park, that's not normal. That's not daddy, right? Someone has taken the keys of the car. Someone has hijacked your systems. And this ability to give only access in real time at a certain type of profile of users or machines, and being able to reevaluate these conditions is a very important giant leap into securing the complex systems that you guys described this morning. And so these are the two engines that basically propel the cybersecurities of tomorrow, and there are many, many others. So three things you have to have in mind. First of all, make sure that the cybersecurity systems that you choose are broad in their ability to embrace all these different technologies, mobility, data analytics, process automation, identity management, and some others that are coming your way, guys, such as blockchain and some others. Broad, first attribute. Second attribute, integration. Integration means that you have to be able to put this system in place and not reconfigure all your policies, all your operational conditions, or your security rules. And the third thing is automation. The human brain is not just fast enough, and his memory not just big enough to handle the manual correlation of all the logs and operational condition of all these systems working together. So broad, automated, and integrated. We actually call that a fabric, which is an intricate, connected series of cyber solutions that are able to speak together and have, and that's the last adjective that I will pronounce here, but it's the most important, have this holistic view of cybersecurity. We have witnessed the end of the point solutions where I want to secure that, so I want a given system to secure that. Oh, I have to secure this, and I take another system. You have to have this holistic ability that some analysts call the cybersecurity mesh, you know, the intricate, that we've been calling the fabric for 12 years now. And that enables the visibility at every single level of how you are under attack, how you are compromised, and what part of your information system needs to be isolated with a granularity that enables you to cure where there is an attack and to have the rest of the information system continue to work.
Sure. Thanks, Alan. We are just running out of time. So I'd just like to, before concluding, take a viewpoint from each one of you. Very briefly, maybe 30 seconds to each panelist. What we have heard is, and we know pharma is a very heavily regulated and conformance to compliances are a mandatory. And we are talking about touchwood, things don't get too serious, but a very likely scenario is we will have these regular attacks, and we need to evolve faster in terms of vaccines with more strains and these mutations happening, more newer strains might come up and we might need newer vaccines. So the question is, time will be of critical essence, especially to bring up these newer vaccines and keeping in mind that regulatory framework also in mind. So in light of this, what will be the biggest challenge for a pharma company in the coming, if I may say, coming few months? So starting with Ganesh, very briefly, 30 seconds to each panelist.
Rajneesh, I'm just going to expand your question to not just vaccines, but also new drugs which are coming out, because for most of us, that's what we'd be looking at. So to me, I think what you would be looking at is integration across the value chain, not just internal, but also external, because you are seeing so many new age things that are coming up, especially if you're looking at AI and drug discovery. You're looking at a lot of small players coming in, you're looking at supercomputing. So look at a lot of these partnerships that you need to forge to be able to get the best of all the worlds. You can't do everything on your own. That would be what I would really look at.
Sanjay.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, and I'll borrow the word fabric, internally and externally, the parties, because not only the pharmaceutical company, but right from your customer to your regulators, everybody need to. Not sure whether I was audible because I
There
had a
was
problem with
some
Wi-Fi.
disturbance in the audio. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can
this is one
continue.
of the challenge. Whatever digital technology you talk about, you need to have a platform, a back-end platform, which is a solid one. But coming to the point, what I was trying actually, it's a fine fabric of internal and external organizations. Like you need to have fine integration between all your systems, working in your internal departments, organization, regulators, your customers, and I think the entire gamut of communication need to happen seamlessly. That is one of the things which probably I look forward as a challenge, which is not there, but going forward it should be. That one thing can help us to reduce the cycle time on drug manufacturing.
Sandeep.
Yeah, let me touch about an aspect which is different from, I'm quite sure others, everybody will add. So to me, mindset. Yeah, we have to understand we were a generation of industry people who were paper based. Yeah, and we have suddenly through this external force being jumped into something which is very digital. So having a long term eye for impact and change, and not just focusing on short term, is something that is needed and would help. Yeah, so that's something that I would add towards the end here.
Okay, Narendra.
Well, I think Ganesh and Sanjay and Sandeep have already added the word. So let me just take it slightly backward. Right? I think there has to be a system in place which basically provides a seamless integration between the researchers, the documentation around that, the clinical trials, and the handing over to the manufacturing, so tech transfer. So these four important pieces for new drug discovery and also filing in between. So these 4 to 5 components of newer drug discovery are critical to connect seamlessly, which is which is a challenge for most of the pharma, particularly generic and novel drug discovery. I've seen this has been a challenge even in the world leaders as well. So I think we need to see how this evolves, in time to come.
Thanks. Manu.
I would just like to add what Narendra Bhai was saying, and I would say that it's only not, we need to extend the point that the clinical trials will be shorter and shorter. The time of checking the patients, evaluating the patients will become shorter. So extending our horizon to a term what we all were using, the pharmacovigilance, but was kind of sidelined in most of the organization in India, is now have to come back into it. We need to be more prevalent to what data is flowing in the web, what kind of effects and feedbacks we are getting on the web about our drugs, then integrating it directly to the end users, directly to the patients. Can we connect to the wearable devices? Can we collect data from there? And that integration would, I think, be the future of where we can accelerate it faster.
Thanks. Braj.
Yeah, instead of one, I'll probably say two. One is inward looking, one is outward. The one inward is exactly what Ganesh mentioned. So I think a big focus is going to be integration between business units via platform integration, product integration, which is very foundational. Second is outward. I think there's a lot of focus they're going to put on new business models enabled by digital.
Thanks. Nikhil.
Yeah, I think in my viewpoint, agility becomes very critical. So agility, I think now that people have realized the power of digital, I think there is going to be an increased demand, whether it is internal or external, as Braj alluded to. So I think agility is going to be very critical. So whether it is aligning with startups, whether it is getting in people who can deliver quickly. I think this is going to be extremely critical for all the organizations. That's my viewpoint.
Thanks. Shomoduti.
Yeah, so, as we already talked about the integration and having it very quickly, there is much data flowing here and there, from inward to outward, outward to inward. So with all these, we have to much more strengthen the security policies as well, so that the data are not misused by any of in other places, by hackers or anybody. And maybe it can also bring a dark side to the manufacturer or the pharmacist. So security has to be parallelly strengthened, and that is a big challenge in today's world.
Sure. Krishna.
Yeah, so while I was saying, I think again, on the drug discovery part, I think the AI will definitely, give what it is, has the capability to do that. However, on the operations side, yes, there are challenges, coming back to challenges, which I was alluding in my previous point as well. And also the one big factor is about these new technologies, the concept or the reliability of those technologies, whether you are ready to invest so much on your core manufacturing or your core quality is a big question, which has been put back to the IT, saying that, can you tell me that this will work the way it is supposed to be? So that's something which is a challenge we have to face, and we have to answer for it. And that's what I feel is the major one.
Sure. Pavitran.
I think most of the points are covered. What I see is the ecosystem level, how the regulatory body is going to support the ecosystem so that we have better collaboration and, so that, we have better innovation in the pharma sector. Yeah, that's all.
And Alan, the last word, you have the last word.
It will be simple, is don't invent first and secure next. Put the security at the forefront of your innovation process. Because the moment you put in production and then, oops, I need to secure that, you're already under attack. Put security at the center, and we would be delighted to help you in this thought process. Thank you very much, everybody.
Welcome. Thanks. So I'll just, as I mentioned earlier, just do the digital certificate handover, and our team will connect with each of you to take your addresses where we can send a little bit token of appreciation. So let me call out the names for the certificates. Can we have the certificates? Yeah, Ganesh Ramachandran, Alchem Laboratories. Thanks, Ganesh.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, can we, Sanjay Nandavedekar, Director IT Cipla. Thanks, Sanjay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sandeep Pandey, CDO of Mankind Pharma. Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you, APAC Manufacturing. Thanks, Rajesh.
Narendra Saini, Head Digital and Data, Lupin. Thanks, Narendra. Next, Alan Sanchez, EMEA CISO and Senior Evangelist of Audit.
Thank you. I'm very proud to put this in my office now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pavitran Ayala, Vice President, IT Newland Laboratories. Thank you, Pavitran.
Thank you.
Manu Gupta, VP IT, Cadila Pharma. Thank you, Manu.
Thank you.
Braj Panda, VP and Head of Digital Center of Excellence, Dr. Reddy's. Thank you, Braj.
Thank you, Rajesh and team.
Nikhil Shembekar, Head Digital Analytics and Supply Chain and Emerging Technologies at Sun Pharma. Thank you, Nikhil.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shomoduti Ghosh, AVP Digital Manufacturing at Strides Pharma. Thank you, Shomoduti.
Thank you very much.
And Krishna Sai T, AVP IT at Biocon. Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajneesh and team. Thank you.
Sure. And with that, we come to an end of the panel discussion. Thanking all the panelists for making it the most interactive discussion. Maybe if we had more time, we could have gone on since it was such an interesting discussion. Anyway, I'm sure we would converge on a similar platform, maybe next time, not digitally, but physically face-to-face, and continue on this vein with an interesting discussion. Thanks to all of you and wishing all of you a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
you, all of you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Really nice to connect.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.